Welcome back to the Cossy Arsenal channel. My name is Cossy. Welcome back to a brand new video. Noni Madueke is seen as a tier 1 signing at Arsenal. The question is why? Why do Arsenal see Noni Madueke as a tier 1 signing? And what exactly do Arsenal see in this player that we don't? Now, there's some very, very fascinating numbers that actually back the signing of Noni Madueke in relation to the problems Arsenal had last campaign. A low block, a mid-block, and just transitions and just making things happen. He's one of those players that actually have those qualities that we lack in the squad. Now, is he the only one Arsenal could get? Definitely not. And we're not looking at Madueke alone this summer. We're looking at Brian Buemo, Matthias Cunha, and players like that. So in this video, I want to dive into why Arsenal really signed Noni Madueke, what other players were linked with Arsenal in that same profile, and what that tells us about Madueke and what he's going to do at the club. Hit the like button, subscribe to the channel as well, right? Let's get into it. Now, Ghana blog, James McNicholas from The Athletic has just said that both Martin Zubimendi and Noni Madueke are described internally at Arsenal as tier 1 signings, meaning they have the capacity to be starters, right? However, Mikel Arteta is currently evolving from the tiered system, from the tiered system to reflect the modern demands in football. So, basically, what James McNicholas is trying to say here is that Mikel Arteta has been using the tiered system where players in tier 1 definitely are starters. Players in tier 2 are your backups, and maybe tier 3 are your squad players that never play so much. And we have seen a bit of evidence of that. If you look at the last 5 years, there are players that Mikel Arteta has played a lot, like Saka. And those players have either demanded a rest or needed a rest, and the rest didn't come. And Mikel Arteta, obviously, as a tier manager, for his role is to make sure that you play as long as you are in tier 1. Now, Mikel is trying to evolve, and he's trying to make sure that many players get different minutes and more minutes as well. And we're going to see a bit of a mixture between the tier 1 management, which is you're going to see some players that are really regular, maybe Saka, maybe Rice, maybe Saliba and Raya. And then you're going to see a lot of exchange between the other positions. Maybe Gyökeres starts this game and Havertz starts the other. Maybe Madueke starts this game and Martinelli starts the other. I don't have a problem with that. I've always complained that Arsenal do not have a well-rested squad. And that was partly due to the fact that Mikel didn't have enough options, and he's talked about that this summer and even in the season last campaign. But also, that was because Mikel Arteta, as manager, didn't really embrace rotation. But with those injuries he suffered last campaign, he must now embrace rotation. So, is Noni Madueke just a rotation option? Well, no. According to the Ghana blog, he says that he's seen as a tier 1 signing. Potentially, he could be a starter. And there's so many examples, there's so many statistics that actually back that Madueke could be a very good signing for us, no? And his starting of games could actually impact us rather than hinder us from winning the Premier League, UCL, FA Cup, Carabao Cup, and whatever we want to achieve. So, why did we sign Noni Madueke in the first place? Well, let's first talk about making things happen, because he's one of the players that really are good at making things happen. And at Arsenal, we do have players that make things happen, but that is actually just one of them. That is Bukayo Saka. So when you think about the importance of Bukayo Saka to this Arsenal team, it is so huge and very, kind of very heavy, right? So Saka is the player. When everything is going well, he links up with other players who will score, will assist, and all that. And Arsenal will win. But when things get difficult, this Arsenal team doesn't have players that are willing to pick up the ball and make a difference. I remember last summer and throughout the campaign, we've been talking about a player, a type of a player that has got an X factor, right? I'm not saying Madueke is that player. I'm saying he actually is that player at Arsenal as compared to the other players we have. So this campaign or this previous campaign, one thing we've seen is you find Arsenal passing the ball for like a minute or two without any other, without anything happening. Like just passing the ball sideways to sideways to sideways to sideways to sideways. And a player with an X factor would be a Florian Wirtz. A player with an X factor would be someone like Morgan Rogers. A player with an X factor would be someone like Eberich Eze, and someone like Noni Madueke. Now, the only player that really has that quality X factor is, for me, Saka, and then maybe Ethan Wanyeri. Because we look at what Wanyeri does with the ball, he's got that X factor to shoot outside the penalty area. He isn't afraid of doing that, and just pinning that ball to the back post. He's not afraid of doing that. So maybe those two other players, when Arsenal are in a situation where I'm like, we need a goal, but our problem is not finishing. Our problem is creativity. Those are the two players I would trust. Now, in terms of finishing, if Arsenal need a goal and the game really needs a goal, that is Leandro Trossard. Very clinical. Nobody has a problem with that. That is what Noni Madueke first and foremost brings to Arsenal. He carries the ball into the final third. He will dribble at you. He will make things happen for you. And maybe, just maybe, if Arsenal are in the Champions League and we are taking on a club like Dortmund, or Dortmund are very, very open in terms of their play, a club like Inter Milan, let's say, and we need a goal, and this game is 1-0, Arsenal are struggling, maybe you bring on Madueke on the left-hand side, and you also bring on, and you also have Saka on the other hand, and things can actually start happening. So, I have a problem with Gabriel Martinelli. And I think I want to really redefine what my problem with Gabriel Martinelli is. If he doesn't play closer to goal, and if you don't allow him to play on the counter-attack, he becomes a little bit futile. Honestly, for a winger in this modern-day football age, you should be able to work in tight spaces. You should be very good in 1v1s. I think Martinelli was very good in 1v1s. I don't know what's happened. I really cannot tell why he's no longer that brilliant. He's afraid of taking on players. Is it the instructions from the manager to keep the ball safe? I don't know. But Noni Madueke certainly brings that to the team. And if Mikel Arteta as the manager was telling Martinelli, don't take on players, you will lose the ball, then what's the point of signing Noni Madueke, who is actually the player that makes things happen? So I think that's the first thing that Arsenal looked into, and we signed Noni Madueke. But then there is something else as well, and this is very, very interesting. Well, progressive carries, right? Progressive carries. Now, if you look at teams like Liverpool and teams like PSG, the teams that we lost trophies to last season, they've got that player. In the Premier League, right? At Arsenal, in the Premier League, no Arsenal player carried the ball into the final third more than Noni Madueke last season. No single Arsenal player carried the ball into the final third many times than Madueke. And of course, that goes down to the fact that Saka was injured. That goes to the fact that Odegaard did pick up that injury and his confidence was affected, and blah, and blah, and blah, and blah, and so on, and so on, and so on forth. But we cannot really say that Madueke was that good last season as well. So a mediocre Chelsea player outperformed Arsenal players in progressive carries, right? There is a point of interest there. Now, what are progressive carries? Why are they important? And why did it cost Arsenal last season not to have players that actually have them? So progressive carries are literally when a player dribbles or just carries the ball with his feet. He can carry it. I mean, I saw Thierry Henry just like kind of, dabbing the ball, and he was just moving. He was insane. But when the player moves with the ball from the first third of play to the middle third into the final third. So it could be from the second phase of play into the third or final phase of play. It could be from the first phase of play, like you see Miles Lewis-Kelly. So if you look at the Gabriel Martinelli miss in the first leg against PSG, Miles Lewis-Kelly just carries the ball, like he turns in midfield and carries the ball into the final third and just makes a very wonderful pass into Gabriel Martinelli's path, but he doesn't convert. That is what we call a progressive carry. You go with the ball, you move with the ball from the second phase of play or first phase of play into the final third. Now, why Arsenal didn't have that? Like I said, injuries, but also skill set. Let me explain. So when you look at PSG, they've got players that are so bloody confident and just carrying the ball and bringing it into the penalty area. Kavichi Kvaratskhelia, Desire Doué, Osman Dembele. You know, get the point. And it's so easy for them to always get into the final third. Now, when you compare that to Arsenal, who are our major players, right? In the, in front or in the busy and most dangerous thirds. Odegaard carrying into the box? No. Rice? No. Havertz? No. Jesus? Yes, but he was injured. Saka? Yes, but he was injured. Martinelli? No. Trossard? No. So most of our players will drive and reach a point and look back and pass backwards or sideways. That's why Arsenal said, maybe Noni Madueke is actually a good signing after all. Progressive carries. So what you'll see with Noni Madueke and what you'll see improving with Arsenal is when you have a player like Noni Madueke, you can just have him carry the ball into the penalty area. We had Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain do that very well. We had Tomasi Rosicky do that very well. And you remember the results of such. Like Alexis Sanchez, Santi Cazorla. You want players that are brave enough to just carry the ball into the penalty area. Doku and Salah are the other players that do that very well. And you can look at their impact at their various respective teams. Now, then there is shots. And I was shocked at this, right? There is just volume of shots. Not shots on target, not shots that have been converted, shots. No Arsenal player in the Premier League, again, had more shots than Noni Madueke last season. Now, again, I don't want to refer to this out of context because we have almost each and every Arsenal player that we could rely on suffered some very, very important injury. Be it Havertz, Saka, Odegaard, they all suffered very, very big injuries, right? But let's consider them on a good day. Which Arsenal player in this current squad would have more shots than Noni Madueke if all of them played 38 games in a single campaign? Only Saka for me. Only Saka and Ethan Wanyery, because Wanyery's instincts are go for goal. Saka's instincts are go for goal. But apart from those two, the other Arsenal players, their priorities and instincts lead them to do other things. Like totally different other things. Not scoring, honestly. And not striking the ball towards goal. So again, Noni Madueke is having shots. And what's the problem we've been talking about when it comes to low blocks? Can we really get people to shoot? Why don't Arsenal players shoot? Well, Noni Madueke comes in and he actually solves that. Like, it's a genius signing that I had not looked into because he was coming from Chelsea and he had his season wasn't glamorous, but I can see the point of it now. So you can have a player like Noni Madueke come in maybe 70th minute, and then you have shot after shot after shot after shot. You have corners, and when corners come in, you know what's going to happen. Arsenal are going to bury you if you allow us on corners. And then the third aspect that I looked at, there were only 3 English Premier League players that had more touches in the opposition penalty area than Madueke last season. Only 3 in the entire league. Only 3 players had more shots than Noni Madueke in the opposition penalty area. What does that tell you? I mean, we've already said play Martinelli closer to goal. We've already said that. And this necessarily doesn't translate into goals. It doesn't translate into numbers. But the reason for that is poor decision making and poor timing, right? And just being unsettled, like lacking the composure to finish. If Mikel Arteta can work with Noni Madueke on composure, timing, when to shoot, and also decision making, basically, which is timing and composure, right? I think he becomes a very important player and part of this Arsenal team. I think it really, really does. Because Arsenal need players that can shoot. We need players that are brave enough to shoot, right? So if he's having a lot of volume in the final third, and he's having a lot of touches in the opposition penalty area, that is a player you want to have in your team, because he's always going to be on the ball in the opposition penalty area. He can create, he can score. You just have to work with his composure, you just have to work with his decision making, and everything will be okay. And what this all translates into is the Arsenal's ability on transitions are improving. Arsenal improving their ability on low blocks, breakdown, and also breaking down mid blocks. Because if a player like Madueke, and he has this heavy volume of touches in the penalty area, it means he's either getting the ball and carrying that ball into the penalty area himself, like we've seen. His ability to carry the ball into the final third is impeccable, or he's positioning himself so well that every single time he will find himself in the opposition penalty area on the ball, which is also something that Arsenal can actually benefit from in terms of breaking down a low block.